Hello, and welcome to Level Up Your Xero Knowledge, which is presented in collaboration with Xero and Grunberg & Co. So I'm Sarah Booth, I'm a consultant at Xero, and today I've got with me Charlotte, who I'll let introduce herself.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you all for joining us so far. I recognise some of the names on the list, but for those of you that I haven't met or worked with, I've been with Grunberg & Co for nearly 11 years now. My main background's been in accounts and audit, but last spring I took over taking responsibility for our cloud accounting team. And part of the reason we're doing this webinar is I want to be a bridge between traditional bookkeeping and your year-end account statutory preparation. So I've got two hats on today, both accounts and bookkeeping, and hopefully some of that knowledge will be able to come across to you.
Brilliant, thank you. So before we go on to look at our agenda and get stuck in for today, what I would really like is to make sure all of you have got access to the chat functionality. So could you pop in where you're from and whereabouts in the country you're from today, and if you are a cake or a sweets lover. Personally, it is on the side of cake for me. It is definitely a vice. Also, this helps me to be able to see that everyone can hear me. Okay, starting to see a few of those coming through. It looks like we've got quite a lot of local. So I'm personally based in Stoke-on-Trent. I've got another cake lover, so thank you for that. I've got Hertfordshire, and Ashwell. Oh, thank you very much. And it's great to know you can hear me. That is the perils of doing a webinar. Thank you. Oh, we've got someone as far south as London today. Thank you. Or south to me, at least. Just bear with me. Trying to move that presentation on. It's just taking a second. It's always when you go in live. I'm having a couple of issues with getting this presentation to move, so just bear with me 1 second.
I can see it's been a real mix between cake and sweeties, so maybe we should have done it in person and had an option.
Yeah, I agree. Just give me a second. They seem to be having technical difficulties. You can see that I have got Xero ready and waiting there. There we go. Brilliant. I've got it. Not sure what happened, so thank you for your patience there. Let's have a look at what we are going to cover today. Firstly, we're going to look at Xero for Business. So this is looking at what you actually are, your business is doing day to day, and how Xero works for you and how you can use Xero and where you probably spend most of your time when you're doing the bookkeeping. Then we're going to take a look at some accounting adjustments. And as Charlotte said, trying to bridge that gap between your bookkeeping and those year-end accounts and making that as smooth as possible. Then we're going to go through, and I'm going to hand over to Charlotte at this point, and she'll talk you through the cloud team at Grunberg & Co. And how all the resources they have available and how they can support you. And as always, we try to leave a little bit of time at the end for questions. And if any questions crop up throughout, pop them into the chat box, like you put your dedication for sweets, your location, and we will pick those up at the end. So, Xero for Business. Let's be realistic. How are you using Xero day in, day out? Firstly, it's for your sales. So we're going to take a look at your sales process in Xero and how we can get you paid a little bit faster, hopefully. Then for every business, as much as we don't want to, we've got bills to pay. So let's have a look at how we get those into Xero. And again, trying to save you some time and speed up that process. And then we'll go on to look at reconciling the bank. So bringing those sales and those bills together and matching it off against what money you've received into the bank. The majority of this webinar is going to be in Xero, so let's go away now and take a look. So this screen is one you're probably very familiar with. It's the dashboard. It's where you're going to land when you open up Xero every time. And what we've got here is some really useful information. We've got our accounts watch list over here, just on the right, and that brings up some key accounts, and you can see the costs in there. You will have to forgive that mine is demo data, so it's not as realistic as yours will be. And also, before I go on and look at your sales, and I'm going to take you through how to raise a sales invoice, some of the features we've got to help you get paid faster and what your customer will see, I do just want to draw your attention to this little create new button. It's there on the vast majority of Xero screens, and it gives you the ability from pretty much anywhere to create a brand new invoice, bill, journal, or bank transaction. But for today, I'm not going to click that. I'm going to click our business tab, because this is where that day-to-day bookkeeping is stored in Xero, and that's how you access it. So first off, we're going to look at sales, and we will take a look at purchases afterwards. We're not going to look at it today, but you have got the ability to have your expense claims in there, and your products and services are Xero stock management. So let's go to sales overview. Okay, hopefully some of you are quite familiar with this screen. If I'm honest, I know plenty of clients in my past when I've worked with accountants are familiar with the screen, but don't really know how it can add value to them and how it can hopefully help them get money in quicker from their customers. So what this screen does is it gives you a really high level, quick overview of your sales position. What we can see here with my demo data is that I've got 16 invoices being raised, totaling just over £21,000. And I can see that 7 of those are overdue. And so this functionality only really works if you are putting in an accurate due date. So when you're giving your customer to pay you, and keeping your bank up to date, which we will come on to. But if you're using those two features correctly, then this screen is really helpful. And personally, if I was running Demo Company UK, and this was my Monday morning, I'd log in, I'd look at my dashboard on here, and I would see that Ridgeway University, not only do they owe us the most money, but all of that money is over past their due date. So what I might be doing now is picking up the phone, giving them a call, trying to get them to pay me the money, but also see what's going on. And so that's a really useful functionality there. As I said, though, I'm going to take you through creating a sales invoice and getting that over to your customer. So we've got this new button up here. If we click that, the same thing will happen as would happen pressing the create button up here for invoice. And if you click the little drop down, it gives you more functionality for your quotes and credit notes for those of you that need them. But we're just going to create an invoice today. Okay, so this is how we create a sales invoice in Xero. It may look a little bit different from what you're used to, and it may look exactly the same, which is great. But we've got this button down here. So what I've got is I've got the new sales invoice screen, but there's also what we call the classic invoice screen. And if you want to swap from the classic to the new, you just click this and it'll remember. So next time you log in, like it has with me, it's logged into the new. Those of you that have joined Xero more recently, since the feature was rolled out a couple of years ago, it does automatically put you into the new screen. And for me, the big distinction to use the new sales invoice is because, one, it's a much cleaner image, and we can also customize with the show and hide fields what is on the screen, so we can make it so it suits us and what we need. Secondly, what we're able to do is it's got auto save. So I've been talking to consultants in the past or project managers where they maybe put quite a lot of detail into their sales invoices. And if they're on the classic screen, they might go away for make a cup of tea and they come back, there's been a glitch in the internet and it's not saved and they've got to start again. But when you're in this screen, this new invoicing screen, it's got that auto save. So if something does happen, it's there and you can pick up where you left off. Also, what it gives you the ability to do is to add contact details when you create a new one. So when you're bringing in a new customer. So I'm going to raise a sales invoice now. What I'm going to do, I was talking about Ridgeway University. So I'm going to raise a new sales invoice to them. Select that as our contact. But what you can see here is we've got this little warning because Xero's got credit control functionality built in. So what you could do is for each of your sales contacts, you go into your contact menu and update them and put in their credit limit. Now, clearly this isn't a great business decision because they've got a credit limit of 1,000 and I have got sales invoices with them currently of 6,000 that they haven't paid. Now, as you can see from the message, Xero won't let me send this invoice to them. And that's because I've ticked a box saying, don't let me send invoices if it's over the credit limit, but you can just have it as a warning flag so that it just says, hey, they are over, just so you know if you want to send that invoice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to forget Ridgeway. I did just want to illustrate that lovely credit control screen. And I'm going to set up a new one for Charlotte. Sorry, Charlotte, but you're on my screen, so I'm going to pick on you. And as I said, because she's a new contact, I can click add details here and I can put some key information. Now, I always recommend you put in as much information for your customers as possible, but we're going to pop in an incoherent email address here. She's getting her email sent to me, just so I can illustrate what happens when we send this on to a customer. So I've popped my email address in. We could pop our address, but I haven't got the imagination to come up with those details. So I'm just going to hit save. So we've managed to put that in. At a later date, if you want to add more information into Charlotte, you can always go into your contacts at the top, find her and edit it. Now, I think what we're going to do today is we are going to sell some art supplies. So I'm going to pop that in as our reference for the fair. Sorry, Charlotte, I've no idea what you're up to, but you're buying some art supplies from me. We can then work our way through. Our invoice number is auto-generated through Xero. Our issue date, so that's the date of our invoice, is today. And now this due date. This is what I was flagging as being really important for that credit control functionality. So making that sales dashboard really useful for you. Say I've given Charlotte 7 days. I can just click the drop down and do that there. Or if I type in, I can put a little plus and I can put 21. And if I tab along, it calculates that for me. So we can put that due date in, and then it won't flag to me that Charlotte is overdue until the 5th of April. Also, if we just work our way through these here, manage online payments. Some of you may already have these set up, but Xero's got some great functionality with online payment providers, including Stripe, Go Cardless and PayPal, amongst others. And what you're able to do is you're able to link that directly with your Xero. So when you send a sales invoice out, there's a big button that says pay now, and that helps customers pay you faster because it's removing a barrier of needing to go into the bank account. And Xero will automatically link with that. Currency. Some of you may need to operate in multiple currencies, so you can change that if you've got that functionality in your Xero. And just a last note on this branding theme. So the branding themes are really fantastic. It can be really useful if you've got, say, multiple revenue streams. Maybe for this one, I'm selling to Charlotte. She might be another business. So I might have a slicker, more business-friendly invoice that I send to her. But then I might also sell directly to the public, and I might have a more fun branding, and I would be able to swap between the two there if I was selling between the public. Like that. I've also known some people pop in a nice Christmas branding, so they swap that over every December, and it just said wishes the customers a nice little Christmas. And you can set those up custom for your company in Xero settings. And then we've got the ability now to put in our details. So some of you may already be using the items. They are what I mentioned earlier when I said the products and services. And so you can use these to track stock. So you can use that. So when you've got a purchase, it can say it's got 5, in this example, golf balls. And then when I sell 4 to Charlotte, it takes that off. Or it's really great as well, not just for tracking, but being able to pre-populate details. So you can see if I've got a standard detail that I like to put in. So Charlotte's ordering some plain black t-shirts. It's got the price, which is standard. It's got the details, and it's defaulted with our tax rate and our sales account.
just want to jump in at this point and say that what we have picked up a lot on at year-end accounts is that when you're generating sales invoices and your products are outside the scope of VAT, so it might be that they're being invoiced to the EU or to somebody else, make sure that you're choosing the Xero rated sales tax code. If you select no VAT, it doesn't come up on your VAT return. It's really important to select that, because at the end of the year, what we do is reconcile your total sales in box 6 on your VAT return back to your turnover in the accounts. Make sure there isn't a large difference, because we have seen HMRC launch investigations when turnover per the accounts is much higher than on a VAT return over the course of the year. They're saying, well, have you not declared in the entirety of your sales? So therefore, if you bring it in as a Xero rated income, it's always going to show in your box 6. It's not technically the most accurate way of doing it, but it eliminates that risk that we're going to trigger an HMRC inquiry further down the line.
Thank you, Charlotte. And so I'm going to pop that in. You can add in more lines if you need to, and we could pop those in and add in as much detail as you need for your customers. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to approve an email. And what Xero has got the ability to do is set up lots of templates to help make your life easier. One of those templates is your invoice email. So you can see I can swap between those here. So I could say, I could send an email that it's already overdue with a payment reminder, and you can customize these yourself in your settings. I'm going to leave it at basic. You can see it's picked up Charlotte's name from the contact there, which I put in, and our email address. So that's why I'd always encourage you to ensure you put that in. And it's going to attach a PDF of our invoice, and it's got all the details for paying online and how much is due and when it's owed, needs to be paid for. Sorry about that. And you can also send yourself a copy. So I hit send on that. And now the reason I've chose art supplies is because I'm thinking back to my childhood, and I've got, here's one I prepared earlier, and it feels very Blue Peter because I wasn't sure how fast my internet would go through. And so this is what your client can receive. So demo company is our logo there, and this is that nice green pay now button I referred to. So that's linked to our payment services. So if I click into my invoice online, I can see that this one is due today. So it's slightly different than the one I've just created. And it's going to take me to PayPal. This is a demo company. It's not going to let me pay it. And they've got a PDF copy attached to the email if they like as well. So I hope that you can see that that could help you get paid a lot faster by your customers. And hopefully you've picked up one or two things on there that you don't already know about. But what I'd like to do now is I'd like to talk you through how we get bills in. That was all about how we process our sales and get them through Xero. So bills, you can do much the same way. We can click the little create new button, create a bill up there, or go through the business tab and go to purchase overview. And I'll very briefly show you that it's a mirror really of our sales overview. So you can see what is awaiting payment for bills you've processed. Again, if you utilize those due dates, you can see what you're overdue with suppliers, so who might be phoning you on a Monday morning to get you to pay. And you can see also timelines of when you're due to pay those bills. So the more accurate the information you input, the more useful this screen will be. And I will very briefly show you that if we click that new button, again, it's got the drop down, but if we click that new button, it's a mirror image really of the sales screen, that classic invoice screen. And you can fill that in just the same way. Now, I'm not going to dwell on this because one, we've just gone through it on the sales side. And two, if I'm honest, I don't want you to use this. I don't want you to sit there and type in your bills that you've received from your suppliers. I don't want you to get a VAT fuel receipt and sit there and type it in and take a picture to attach it, or even file it away in your filing cabinet or wherever it may be. What I would much prefer you to do is utilize our other product, which is called Hubdoc. If you're not using Hubdoc currently, I'll just introduce it to you. So first off, to find it, click on your company name in your Xero org, and you should have the ability to click that here. And assuming it's not already set up, you'll get a screen that is very similar to this and allows you to set up a Hubdoc. Now, first off, this is included for free in your subscription. So if you're using Xero, this is free for you. It's not going to cost you any more, but it will save you time. So I'm going to move on over to Hubdoc that I've already got. I'm just going to have to open it up again because it seems to have closed on the timeout. And because this is a demo company, I haven't got a live one there. So this is Hubdoc. Again, I don't expect you to come away from this knowing how to use Hubdoc and every feature. But what I want you to do is understand how it could save you time and have an idea that if you do want to set it up, where to go to find that, and also to reach out to your accountant if you want some support with that. So first of all, what does Hubdoc do? Essentially, it does the processing for you. So when I say I don't want you to sit and type in those details, I really mean it. I don't. What I want you to do is to put either a photo or a PDF into Hubdoc, and it's programmed to read that information for you and create the transaction in Xero. So the ways we can get that information in to start with, we can get it in multiple ways that could suit your business. Firstly, we can just upload a PDF. So if you get emailed PDF invoices from your suppliers, say your rent, say your Vodafone, for your mobile phone bills or for your office internet, you can just click browse, or you can drag and drop them here as you would expect. Also, you get a custom email address that's specific to your Hubdoc only. And what you can do is you could just forward that office internet invoice onto Hubdoc and it'll start to process it. And then I mentioned fuel receipts earlier. So things like fuel, or if you've been to taking the team out for a meal, or you are on the road a lot, so you have a lot of toll tickets or parking tickets, we've got an app. It's really easy to use. Just take a picture of your receipt. You can again get rid of your receipt, and that's the same for all of these. You don't need to keep any paper because it's kept digitally and it's going to be attached to the transaction in Xero, and that meets all of the HMRC requirements for keeping those records. So we don't need to keep that paper anymore. And then once we've got that receipt into Hubdoc, what we can do, now let's just pick on one here. Just move across to one I prepared earlier. If I pick on this train station, parking ticket, again, I did mention I am from Stoke. So yes, it is a Stoke-on-Trent train station receipt. That is now taking a second to load because that's what happens when you're trying to present a webinar on the internet at home. So do just bear with me.
What I'd like to flag while we just wait for that to load is that we really recommend using Hubdoc or an alternative. There are a couple around out there that you can contact us to get some more information on. But just because it enables you to make sure you're claiming the VAT correctly and it stores all of the documents there. So I'm sure Sarah will mention it later, but you don't need to keep files and files of paper receipts around. It does all of the processing for you and can be very streamlined. So we'd always recommend that. And if you haven't already got it in place, get in touch with one of us because it's very easy to set up if you're not managing it on your own.
Thank you, Charlotte. I did cut ahead and I chose a toll receipt instead, but it's the same principle, parking or toll. So I took a picture of this with the app, and that's how it's now sat in my Hubdoc. And this on the right, again, you don't need to remember exactly where everything is, but on here it's picked out our key information. So I haven't entered this. This is what Hubdoc has picked up itself. It's picked up our supplier as Midland Expressway, the date, the amount, and also that we need VAT on there. If you're not a VAT registered company, it won't pick up the VAT because that'll be set up in settings. And so that's saving that typing element I mentioned. It's done all of that for you just from putting that image in there. But then what we can also do to speed up that process is we then tell Hubdoc what we want it to do with a Midland Expressway receipt. So I'm able to say, next time you get one of these, put it into Xero as a purchase invoice, put it to Midlands and put it to travel. And what I have is two options. So I can save that, and every time I can review that in Hubdoc, and then I can click, yeah, that's right, hit OK. And for those costs that are always the same, so let's be honest, my M6 toll receipt is always going to go to travel. I can enlist the auto sync functionality, which creates that directly into Xero, and we don't even have to review it in Hubdoc. And then that's sat ready and waiting for your bank reconciliation. So that is how I would like you to start putting your bills into Xero. Try it out if you're not already using Hubdoc, or as Charlotte mentioned, an alternative, because as I said, Hubdoc is free in your subscription and it will save you time. And if you are currently filing everything away in filing cabinets, it will save you space because we'll be able to get rid of those as you start putting them through Hubdoc. Now, we've talked about getting you paid faster. So that was our sales process. We've looked at how to process your bills faster and save you a bit of time. And now the key thing is that bank reconciliation that we mentioned. So I've gone back to the dashboard again, and I'm going to click this little reconcile items button to take me into my business bank account. Before I mention how we reconcile in here, I would just like to point out that on the left side of our screen here, every single one of these lines is a bank statement line. So ideally, you've got a bank feed set up, which is where you give Xero permission to download the bank statement directly from your business bank account, and it brings that information in automatically for you. Because then we've got the bank information on the left, and on the right here, we're finding and reconciling to the corresponding Xero transactions. So hopefully you guys get loads of these green boxes, which means we've put a sales invoice in for Ridgeway University. And look, they have actually paid. So it's a good job of come from a bank reconciliation. If I'd have phoned them up, I probably would have annoyed them if I was chasing for that money, because they gave it me over a week ago. This just highlights the importance of staying on top of your bank reconciliation. So all I need to do is do a little sense check. Yeah, that is Ridgeway University. Yeah, that is Ridgeway University. So this is the invoice in Xero, and this is the bank line. And so I'm just going to hit OK and think mark that as paid. And that's just the same for the bill process. I've got a bill, we've paid it and it's gone out to the bank, so hit OK. Now, that's great and that's really easy, but the reality is sometimes when you have a bill, you might pay your supplier for multiple bills at once, or a customer might pay you for multiple invoices at once. So we click this match so that we can match this bank transaction against all of those that we need. So I'm just searching Smart because that's our supplier, and I'm able to tick both of these invoices. And now our total amount we can see down here matches the bank line, and I can hit OK, and that's reconciled as well. And sometimes something else that might happen if we've got a sales invoice on the system is we might get a part payment, maybe a deposit. And so I can go into match and I can search, in this case, City, because I can see on that bank line, it's City Limousines. And I can pay that against invoice number 17. And I can click this little button split. And it's automatically going to fill that in with the amount on the bank. I'm going to say, yeah, that's right. And it's going to allocate that £100 against that bigger sales invoice. And again, just hit OK. And we've processed that. What I want to show you now, so the match functionality is what we use to find the bills and the sales invoices in Xero that we know have been created. But sometimes what we have is we have occasionally transactions that maybe don't come with a supporting bill. And so that can be things like Cooper Street Bakery. So maybe it was the office cat's birthday and you went out and you bought some donuts to celebrate. Or let's say muffins. I feel like cats would like muffins more. And so I'm going to create a transaction because they didn't give us a receipt. And so we haven't got one to put through the system. So the who is Cooper Street Bakery. And if we haven't already got them as a contact, it will let us create a new one. The what is going to be, in this case, where shall we put our cat cakes? We can put them to general expenses. We're not going to try and put them anywhere more specific. And I'm just going to put it, it's cat's birthday muffins. Which I hope makes my accountant smile when they get that.
at this point, just be really careful that the VAT is applied correctly. If you don't have a receipt, you're not able to claim that VAT back. So make sure it says no VAT, because it will automatically select the VAT rate for the nominal code you've applied it to.
Yeah, fantastic point. Thank you, Charlotte. So that's where I've just changed that. So it defaulted to 20%, and I've just changed it on the drop down to no VAT, and I'm going to hit OK. So now that's created that transaction in Xero. We've also got the ability to create bank rules. So yeah, okay, it's a one-off. It was the cat's birthday, we went and got some muffins and we lost the receipt. We don't need a bank rule. But something like our fast pay here, which is as our wages payment to our staff, that happens frequently, I hope. And so we're going to create a bank rule because it doesn't have a corresponding bill. And we do that to, one, save you time, and two, make sure it's treated the same every time it goes through the bank. So I'm going to click the little drop down here and create bank rule. And what we've got then is it's pulling through the criteria from the bank. So I just work my way through. So any condition matches. I'm going to delete the second line because bank statements do have the habit of putting lots of numbers and letters in there that mean only have meaning to them. They don't have any meaning to us. And I'm going to change my field so that if any text field contains, and that's the condition, the term fast pay, then this bank rule will be suggested. And what I like to say here is that we want this detail to be accurate enough so that the rule applies, but not so accurate that it doesn't apply next week or next month when that transaction comes in with slightly different number details from the bank. I'm going to create a contact that is net wage payment, just so it's really clear what this is. And so every time it'll create a transaction and post it to that contact. And then what I'm doing next is telling Xero what I want to happen when that goes through the bank. In this case, I want to write the detail as net wages paid. And I want to go to our wages paid on the balance sheet. So that would be our liability account here. And just noticing that VAT rate, because it's on the department on mine, it's called a tracking category. And you can leave these if you like. It's just the reference and what rule the bank applies to, although I personally apply the whole bank, the rule still applies. And you can see now it's suggesting that I apply that bank rule, and I can hit OK. And that's going to save me a little bit of time next week, next month. And it's also going to mean that if I'm on holiday and someone else is picking up those duties, that the transaction is going to the same place.
What I'd recommend is that we use bank rules for things like net wages payments, and we'll touch on wages and payroll shortly when we look at journals, but that you don't rely too heavily on bank rules because, again, the VAT impact can be different on each transaction. You should really be raising bills. It's only for regular things like HMRC payments for PAYE or pension or your wages that we need to be using bank rules. If in doubt, raise a bill, definitely.
Perfect. Yes, definitely. If you've got a bill, raise that. And then just to touch on what these other two tabs are, they're going to be used a lot less by you, I imagine. The transfer, it does what it says on the tin. If you've got a business bank account and a business bank savings account and you're moving money from one to the other, this would be how you do that. So it's recorded properly on Xero. And so we would click on there. And if you've got several banks, there might be a drop down and we can just hit OK. And then the last tab is discuss. And you can figure out how this works for you, your business, and possibly also maybe Charlotte or another accountant at Grumbigs. But essentially, it gives you the space to put down a comment. Maybe you're unsure, so you're not sure where to post this. You could pop in a little comment of, is this bank fees? And it may be that someone else in your team at your business, or maybe your accountant picks that up and posts it in the right place. But if we do that, we can just hit save, and that's there for other Xero users of your company to log in and see and maybe help. Also, it can be really good as a personal reminder. So we picked up Cooper Street. Okay, this is the second time. So the discuss needs to be get a receipt. I'm going to say it was Jeff's fault. I'm also going to spell it right, I promise. So get a receipt from Jeff and save that. So I don't want to reconcile that without a receipt because I want to reclaim the VAT on that. And so that's just a little reminder for myself. Okay, so I think that is everything on our day-to-day and Xero for your business. So let's go back and have a little recap.
Great. So we've often got questions from clients in terms of availability of profits for dividends or potential corporation tax charges at the end of the year. Hopefully what you've been able to see from Sarah's demonstration is that if you're keeping on top of your bank reconciliations, purchase invoices, sales invoices, we're going to be able to give you much better and more efficient support in looking at your numbers. We would recommend looking at these things almost weekly if you can, if not daily, just so that you are aware of what's going on in those dashboards become really useful.
Thank you. Brilliant. And so let's take a look next at those accounting adjustments. So as Charlotte mentioned at the beginning, how do we bridge that bookkeeping with that year-end process and make sure that's as accurate and as informed as possible? So firstly, we're going to go and we're going to have a look at journals. These could be, as Charlotte already mentioned, what you use to post your payroll details in, or your accruals and your prepayments, or maybe your depreciation. We're going to touch on lock dates very briefly, but these are a really great tool in Xero, and they can help keep your data up to date and protect it from back posting, which I'll touch on in a second. And then we'll take a look at some really great Xero reports and have a look at what you can find out from those. So let's hop back into Xero and take a look. So you're going to see, I'm going to head back to my dashboard here first. And we're going to start with a journal. Now, hopefully at this point, you won't be surprised that if we click the little create new button at the top, we've got the ability to post a manual journal there. Just to make sure you are aware of where we can find it, this is something we can find in our accounting tab here. And so it's likely favorited under your advanced. And if not already, you can click into your advanced settings and just go into manual journals here. And this lets you see the journals that have been posted, and it lets you create a new journal. Also lets you review any draft that may be there. So let's have a look at a new payroll journal. So let's put in our wages information for February. So I'm just going to put our narration in so it's really clear what this journal is for. So payroll for Feb 23. And I'm going to pop in the date there as the 28th of Feb 23. If you're not a fan of typing, you can also select that date from the drop down there. And because we've got the narration ticked to be our journal line description, when I tab into a line, we pop that in. And so I like to just leave that detail in and then put in what aspect of the payroll I'm posting. So I'm going to put our gross wages here, and that's going to go directly to direct wages. Again, this region is the tracking capabilities, which is really great for reporting. So if maybe you've got different departments or different offices that you wanted to track, you can set that up in Xero and you can allocate costs and sales to those. So let's keep this really simple. Let's put £1,000 of direct wages for Feb to our profit and loss. And then you can see that's carried that information down. So what I'm going to change that to now is our employers NI. And you can see I'm just typing. If I'm honest, I don't know my chart of account codes. And if you start typing, you get that drop down of the suggested accounts that match. We can pick this one here, employers national insurance. And I know that's a cost of £100. I'm going to leave that here and just add in liability. And that's what we're going to put. It needs paying over to HMRC. So that £100 there. And then I am going to change this to employees national insurance. Again, that's going to go to NIC payable because it all goes to the same place as HMRC. And I will admit it's been a while since I've processed any payroll, so these figures may be completely out of whack. Employers NI is probably much lower than employees, but we'll see. And let's just put in our PAYE here. And we'll put that to our PAYE payable. And let's just put that in as 200. And then what we have left is our net wages, which, if you'll remember, we set up a bank rule for. So we're posting the journal here to our wages payable at the 750. And then when that 750 goes through the bank, it's going to automatically go in and clear that off. So we know we don't owe our employees anymore. And so I can hit post here. I will go on, Charlotte.
No, I was just going to sorry. This is one of the biggest issues that we find when we come to preparing year-end accounts, is that clients of ours that are doing their own bookkeeping are posting net wages or payments to HMRC directly to the profit and loss rather than using control accounts. We'd always recommend using those control accounts because you can see if you owe any money to HMRC or to your staff. Avoid getting those letters through that say you owe us X amount from January 2021 when you haven't actually picked up the fact that those balances were owing, and stop some angry staff coming knocking at your door saying, hang on, you haven't paid me my full wages this month. So always put these journals through. If you need some more advice on how they get processed, because Sarah's given us a basic example, just get in touch and let us know. We can definitely give you training or templates on it to match your own payroll reports and which you need to be extracting from them.
Thank you. So if I'm all happy with those figures and I'm done, I can hit post. I can also save that as a draft. So maybe I want to go and check something with the accountant. Maybe there is student loan deductions or child payment ones that are being deducted directly and you're not sure where to put them. You can save that as draft and pick that up when you're done. Well, let's hit just post that for now. We've also got a repeating journal functionality, which Charlotte's going to highlight what can be really good for. But before she does, I just want to show you, if you can see, all of this is exactly the same as what we just laid out, except we've got the ability to put in placeholders. So if I was to be putting in my accruals, again, spell it correctly, I can put a placeholder in here for the month, and then I can put another one in for the year. So when this creates this every month, it would say accruals for February 2023 or March 2023, whichever one's relevant. We pop in our first journal date here. Let's pop that in as the 1st of March 23. And we want that to repeat every 1 month. And you just get the functionality of saving that as a draft so you can review it. Maybe you want to add in, you might have found a new cost that needs accruing, and you can save that as a draft and update that before you post it, or you can post it directly if you're confident there won't be any changes.
These repeating journals are really great for releasing things like your prepayments. So when you've paid your insurance up front for the entire year and you want to release it to your profit and loss monthly, what I would flag though is to put that end date in that Sarah's just showing us now, because what you don't want to do is have insurance that ends at the end of March and have it released again in April, because the likelihood is you'll need to set up a new repeating journal for your next year's worth of insurance. So just keep that in mind when you're using them, but otherwise, again, it saves you time every month not having to release the same amount.
So you can just see I put an end date in there as March 2024, and I haven't put any details in, but let's just very quickly pick up insurance, as Charlotte said, and let's put that in as 100 a month and put that to our accruals. Code. And choose post or choose save as draft so I can illustrate that for you. And you can just find that under the draft tab here. And you can see it's created just the one for March. And when we tick over to the 1st of April, it'll have created that. And I can click in and I can post that if I like. Great. And so the next thing I really want to touch on very briefly is lock dates. So where we find those is if we go in accounting, they are in our financial settings. So if we go accounting and advanced, if you haven't got them starred, and I do keep referring to these stars, you can mark a blue star next to reports or settings, and so then they show up underneath these. It's not showing us our advanced ones because we're open, but they would show up under here and you can access them quicker. So our financial settings, there's a lot of things in here that we only touch once. So we set up our year end date and our VAT scheme when you set up your Xero. But right at the bottom here, we've got lock dates, and these are phenomenally powerful and useful. So we've got the ability to stop all users except advisors, which is likely yourselves as the bookkeepers and your accountants, and also to stop advisors making adjustments. You can see I've been terrible with this one, and they haven't been locked since 2010, sorry. And I can pop this in. If I know my February period is completely processed, all my sales are in there, all my bills are in there, my bank is reconciled, I've posted my payroll, there's nothing left to do. So I would come in here and I would lock this as at that date and hit save. And what that's really great for is it stops if you or someone else on the team accidentally posts a sales invoice with the wrong date, which it happens to the best of us. I hope it certainly happened to me, not often enough. So lock dates stop us changing that data that we know is right.
Particularly important for when you give us the green light to say, yeah, my Xero account's ready, you can start my year-end account, because what we do is download a trial balance from your Xero. And so if you go in and change anything, say for instance bringing in an extra cost, it won't have been reflected in the trial balance that we've extracted, and therefore you might miss out on that corporation tax relief. We'd likely pick it up at the next year's worth of accounts, but it's always worth keeping it streamlined and efficient. Make sure you've got that lock date in there. It stops easy mistakes to make, and if necessary, if you find anything late, you can always date it the first of the following month so that you're sure it's captured, but it just doesn't get past any of those critical dates.
Brilliant, thank you. So as I said, that's a really brief overview of what lock date is, and Charlotte's highlighted the importance of that again, so thank you very much. And now what I'd love to show you is the reporting capabilities in Xero. So if we have posted our sales, we've posted our bills, and we've posted our payroll, and our bank has reconciled, we know that that information is all up to date and it's been locked. What we're able to do is we're able to run off some really useful reports. So again, going into this accounting tab and clicking on reports, we can see in the reports screen, we've got our favorites. So those are the ones we have blue starred, but we can also see they're broken down by category. So we've got some really useful ones on financial performance, and these are available to all of you, and they're already pre-set layouts to give you that key information. We've also got payables and receivables. So if you are doing that credit control work and you're trying to see what customers still owe you money, you can open the receivables detail report or the age payables detail if you're trying to figure out what suppliers you need to pay today and which ones you can get away with paying next week. Run that report and you'll get that information. But the one I'm going to run for you today, I'm just going to search up here, is the management report. And that's because it's got a lot of useful information in there. And some of you may notice that we've got this, it says old version next to some of the reports. And that's because a lot of our new functionality and our new reports have surpassed and replaced those old reports. And we did keep them in the system for those people who are using them, but they are slowly being removed. And so if you are currently using any reports with old version next to them, I do recommend you start using the, doesn't say new anymore, but the one that doesn't have old next to it. So you can see there's one of both there. So I'm going to open that management accounts report here. And what we get is some really useful reports. So first off, we get this executive summary, which is pulling out that key information on profitability and cash and who owes us money and who we owe money to, and comparing that to the last month. And you can change these date ranges for whatever it is you're looking at. You've got your predetermined ones, or you can click into the dates and change them to be custom, if whatever your needs. And you can compare them with more periods as well. So I'm just going to move over here to our profit and loss, but we've got a balance sheet and we've got those age receivables in here. So we can see who owes us money and who we owe money to with the age payable. And when we know that our sales and our purchases and our bank is all up to date, we can take a look at these reports and it can be incredibly useful, especially if you're trying to make a business decision. So it might be something as big as taking on a new member of staff, or you may be moving property and you may need a new office space. You can run these reports and you can take a look. And these are set up to be really useful in their standard format, but they do have a lot of customizability, and they can be tweaked to show what you want to see, because as standard as business is, every business is different. You've all got your own ways of working, and what's important to you changes from business to business. So you can either tweak these yourself, or you can reach out to your accountant at Grumberg & Co, which Charlotte will go into more detail on in a second, and you can work with them to get that information you want. Also, you may not want to tweak the reports. This may be perfect for what you want to have a look at and find out, but it might be worth just picking up the phone before making those big decisions and reviewing that information with your accountant to just say, hey, I want to buy this property. This is what it looks like. And they might have some great insight or information on to give you guidance on what you maybe haven't thought of, because they are a really valuable resource and they are working with tons of businesses across all sectors. So they are a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, these reports are great. There's a standard functionality set up, but we can tweak it by using the chart of accounts and the layout within the actual report in order to make it more appropriate to your business. As Sarah said, something that might be a cost for one, overhead for one company might be a direct cost for another. So your staff might be a direct cost, and we'll just move those into the cost of sales line so you can get a more accurate GP margin to compare to the year-end accounts when we prepare them later on.
Brilliant. And before I take you back to have a look at the cloud team with Charlotte, I just want to highlight the help available within Xero, and that's what we call Xero Central, is what powers all of this. And if you click this little help icon at the top, you can see that the recommended articles, they try to put in as smart and as relevant an article to support you as possible. So if we were on the bank, they might be suggesting, how do you add a bank receipt? If you're on the sales screen, it might be, how do you add a sales invoice? And they're trying to put the information you need where you need it, but you can always search in here. So if you wanted to have a look at Hubdoc, you can search that and you can take those results and open them up in another tab. It's a really great resource, and it's a great first port of call. If maybe I've said something and in a couple of days' time, you think, oh, how do I do that? Have a look. Or you might be trying out a new feature. You might be starting to look at the products and services on the business tab. Have a search in there. You might just get that little bit of initial information so you can sort of see what your next steps are. Now, let's go back to, and that's just Xero Essential again. And let's have a look at that cloud team. And I'll hand you over to Charlotte.
Thanks, Sarah. So here at Grumberg & Co, we've got a dedicated cloud accounting team. So historically that was known as the bookkeeping team, but we've rebranded because as far as we're concerned, we can deliver far more than just your bookkeeping. We call cloud accounting because not only do we use cloud apps such as Xero, Hubdoc and Dex, but also we can prepare management accounts and far more high level information and reporting for you than just bookkeeping. We've got multiple seniors who have been with us for a number of years, but also some trainees who are available to support if you need it. You may have had contact with the team before. Some of these names may be familiar, but if not, this is who they are. I'd always recommend first off that you go through your usual contacts at Grumberg & Co, whether that be me, whether I work directly with you, or someone such as Rudy or Stefan or Norbert. Those names may ring bells to you. But go to your usual point of contact first, and what we can do is establish how much support you need or what kind of support you need, and then put you in touch with the most appropriate person on the cloud team. That might be an hour's Teams meeting, or it might be that you want to come into our offices to have some more detailed training, but we can be bespoke as according to what you need and kind of start slowly and do it step by step. If you don't know who your main point of contact is at Grumberg & Co, feel free to follow up with me after the webinar, and I can put you in touch with someone who is best placed to support you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Charlotte. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have a look at our key takeaways, and then we've got a few minutes at the end to go through your questions. I can already see one in the chat box about seeing the quantity on the sales invoices. So I'll take you back in and have a look at that. But if you've got any questions, do add them into the chat box now. So our key takeaways are: talk to Grumberg & Co. You are their clients. You know that they are fantastic accountants. That's why you're with them. And you know that you can reach out, and that we've got that great resource on the cloud team where you maybe haven't accessed it before. And if you want some support there, reach out and get going. Hopefully it'll be to sign up to Hubdoc and get that going. But I'm skipping ahead to point 3 there. So number 2, check out Xero Central, not only as the help articles, which detail the different aspects and where you need to click buttons and when those features are useful, but there's actually some learning courses on there as well that you've got access to. So they can be really useful. And then I spoiled it, but number 3 is sign up for Hubdoc. It is free. It's included in your subscription. And for those of you that aren't using Hubdoc or something like it, I really do think it should be able to save you time in processing those bills. Now, as I said, I will have a look at questions in the chat box. For those of you that want to jump off, I appreciate you coming and I'm really grateful. But I will just take you back to the sales screen because we have had a question around being able to show quantity on those sales invoices. So if I go back to the sales invoice, you may remember I said that you can actually change the fields on that new sales invoice. So I can show and hide fields in here and I can choose the ones that are relevant to me. So I haven't got it set up with quantity because generally speaking, I've worked in service industries where I'm providing a service. So quantity's never been of that much importance when I would be sending invoices. It was always for a accounting service or an audit service. Whereas if you're in manufacturing or you're in retail, of course, quantity is going to be of much more importance. And we can click that there and we can save, and that will show up as default in your sales invoice layout. And Charlotte and myself will hang on for a couple of minutes more to answer any questions. Oh, thank you very much for getting a few thank yous and goodbyes in that chat box now. Yes, some of you are, I've got a couple of questions here asking why I've got payroll and project tabs along the top when you might not. And that's because my demo company has got that full functionality. So if you're processing payroll through Xero and you have access to those payroll, you would be able to have that tab and also project. So that's really good for maybe a smaller construction company or someone who's doing consulting projects, and they're able to monitor costs and income against those. Yes, someone's just asked if I could open up the management accounts again. So that was if we go in accounting tab and then we go into reports. And I used the search box earlier, but what you can do is you can go down to the financial statements section. And like I said, I can blue star that so it now appears at the top up there, and I can click into that. And we've got that in there. So I can head over this time to say our age receivable summary. And I can see who owes us money and how long ago that was invoiced. And this is just a summary report. You can pull off a more detailed report. I do recommend going and having a play around with those reports and finding what's useful for you and your business. It looks like I've answered all the questions, but we'll just hang on for another minute or so until 3 o'clock. So if you have got one more, just pop it in the chat box.
Thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. If you do have any questions, feel free to drop me an email. We'll get the recording sent out to everyone who's attended anyway, so that you can watch it back and enjoy again.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. Hopefully speak to you soon.